'Cause I've been waiting to give this gift tonight. I'm down on my knees. There's no better time. It's something.
Welcome back to the Stockwell Roche Show. I'm Jason Stockwell with Remax Results.
Josh Roche, Remax Advantage Plus.
We're very grateful, honored to have with us truly an expert panel from the National Kidney Foundation of people that have lived the process or seen it happen with real life situations and stories with Bonnie and Diane and Dawn, and also Sarah, who is the state director for the National Kidney Foundation. And we left on break with the tip is the physical is so important to go in, and I know I'm always reluctant to go
to
the doctor for anything. And just, especially with, self-employed and healthcare costs and stuff like that, it's kind of like, let's tough this out. And I think a lot of people might have that mentality, especially maybe in the Midwest here, where we're kind of do-it-yourselfer kind of
I couldn't tell you the last time I had a routine physical. Like, it's making me, and I feel fine. I don't feel tired, but I'm just thinking to myself, like, you never know.
Yeah, and as you get older, it's even more important as you get older in age as well. But Maddie, before we left, you were talking about
how do you go about donating
How do you go about knowing if you should donate? Yeah.
So before we go into that, I will say that diabetes and high blood pressure are the leading causes of kidney failure. If you have those conditions or you have them in your family, when you go in for your physical, ask your doctor if they're doing those tests and what those tests mean. And I will tell you, you talked about cost a little bit. Dialysis costs over $100,000 a year. And if it's not covered by your private insurance, it's covered by Medicare. Once your kidneys fail, you automatically qualify for Medicare.
Wow.
A transplant is $103,000 a year. So pay now a little bit or pay later.
What do you mean a transplant is per year? Or per transplant?
Per transplant.
Oh, okay. Just make sure.
And then if you are considering being a living donor, it's the best physical you're ever going to have. We are very lucky in Minnesota. The transplant centers that we have here are remarkable. And you could call any of those transplant centers and say you're interested in being a donor, and they'll send you a kit that you would bring to your doctor to get some blood work done. And then once you pass that, they bring you in, where it's a whole series of physical tests and mental tests, too, to make sure that you are physically and mentally capable of giving an organ. And I will tell you that I just learned at a conference that living donation is starting to run into its own problems because as Americans, we're getting sicker and sicker with chronic disease. So people are stepping forward to be living donors, but they have high blood pressure. So now they can't donate.
Yeah, I get it.
So what is the waiting list as far as like when you get diagnosed, say, hey, I need a new kidney. I raise my hand, I need a new kidney. I'm diagnosed, I need a new kidney. How long is that waiting period? It's
a 3 to 5 year wait unless you find a living donor, which is why we brought in Diane and Bonnie today to talk about their family's donations experiences.
Wow. Yeah, so
5 years.
How many people are actually? Yeah, that's a question I have too. Isn't the typical scenario of a donor someone that you find from your kind of sphere of influence or your family
or your bloodline?
Not always.
Okay.
As Jim and I got into the transplant arena after years of kidney disease, what we discovered, we would sit at education tables of 10 people, and maybe out of that 10, only 2 would have live donors, and the rest were on that waiting list for 3 to 5 to 6 to 7 years. We were very fortunate, beyond fortunate, that 10 people stepped up to be tested for Jim's donor, which is exceptional. We were amazed when the word got out. Today, people get on Facebook and say, I need a kidney. There are all sorts of ways that you can do it. Ours were friends and family. The ultimate donor with the most accurate fit was our son. But pharmaceuticals now take up, if there's not a perfect match, pharmaceuticals will make up the difference. But that comes with a heavy price, too, because of the medications.
Oh,
the more accurate the match,
I see.
The less pharmaceutical intervention you need.
So Bonnie Bemis is speaking now. How was it your husband who had a transplant?
Yes.
So how was he? How did he find out and all that? Like Diane shared her story.
Very similar. when Jim was 39, he was diagnosed with hypertension, high blood pressure, which,
39, folks.
Yeah.
We're not talking
Right.
retired, 60s
Right.
and up. We're talking 39-year-old. That's pretty young, a very, very young age for, right?
So Jim's biggest problem, Sarah had mentioned diabetes and high blood pressure. Jim's was the high blood pressure piece. He is not diabetic. He would occasionally get headaches. He would pop a couple of Advil.
Yeah.
He would get another headache. He'd pop a few more Advil. So during, from 1990 to about 1997, he was popping Advil, watching his blood pressure a little bit, but not a lot. And then he had some back problems. He had back surgery. Popped a few more Advil. And he was prescribed 400 milligram ibuprofen. And he thought, well, if one is good, two must be really good. And so he just developed this pattern of relieving his pain through ibuprofen. And in a routine physical, at the suggestion of his brother, who had been diagnosed with kidney failure,
Oh, wow.
Well,
Jim was diagnosed at stage 3. And in the screening that we've done with National Kidney Foundation, 25% of the people we screen come back with kidney disease, and most of those are at stage 3. So most people are diagnosed at stage 3. And we went with that we did the DASH diet, which is a lifestyle change, reduce the salt, obviously reduce the ibuprofen. And he stayed at stage 3 for quite a while. And then he went to stage 4, stayed there for a year. And then he went for just a routine again to the nephrologist. And he called me and he said, I need a kidney. I need a new kidney. So it kind of goes along, and then it just hit like a tsunami that the kidney was gone. He was at 15% function.
ouch.
And that means that both kidneys,
Correct.
I'd say the
Are-
percentage, right?
because
Yeah, so you don't-
do
you
they
don't
go?
just get
Do
one
they
thing.
work in tandem and they
Yes.
go down together? It's not like one can be. Oh, I have a bad kidney and this one's healthy.
Correct. And what they do, it's so interesting. At the transplant, I said, so what do you do with the old kidneys? They just leave them in and let them atrophy.
Oh, really?
They don't take the old kidney out. They just plug that new kidney in and
Shrivel up.
and they just sit there and shrivel up. Is that what
Yeah.
you found?
The former kidneys really just become very small.
Yeah.
And they don't function really anymore.
Wow.
They found that the surgeons found that it's easier on the body to leave them in rather than try to remove them. It's less recovery. Yeah.
Interesting.
Less chance for infection, less
Yep.
chance for a nick. So I was fascinated by that. And so Jim has 3 kidneys now.
So the healthy one, the donor was your son.
Our son Christopher, our youngest son.
Wow.
Of all the people that were tested, he was the closest, which is not surprising since it was a biological
Yep.
son. The transplant went off beautifully. We were with U of M, which is an excellent place if you need a transplant. And as your experience was with your husband, who said, I'm out of a fog, I walked into Jim's room the day after the transplant, and it was old Jim. It was the Jim I knew years
Really?
ago. His face was brighter, his eyes were clear, his complexion was changed.
The day after it
Wow.
was set up or it's connected with the new one.
All of those
Unbelievable.
toxins had been in there, just
Oh,
Eating at them.
wow.
Wow.
and he was a new person.
And we talk about is it the transferee, the one who receives?
The donor and the donee.
Yeah, the donor and the donee, I guess.
Recipient.
recipient.
Yeah,
But
the recipient.
receives. So we talk about their recovery, and it sounds like that went well and great in both your cases. What about the person who donated, or the son, your son? I mean, isn't that that's an operation. Someone's taking a kidney, right? I mean, how's the recovery on?
It truly is a gift. It is a gift of life because it's a little hard. You can speak to that too.
Yeah, actually, Dan. Yeah, who was your husband's donor?
Well, my husband's comes from a family of 9 kids, and 2 out of the 9 were absolute perfect matches, which was just wonderful. And like Sarah explained, there are some of them couldn't volunteer because they had medical conditions. So, 2 were perfect matches, and the baby of the family. He was so adorable. He said, "Don't even ask the rest of the siblings because I'm the one.
Oh, I love it.
I'm the one."
That is
He walked
absolutely
off
awesome.
of the aircraft with a T-shirt that said,
I have
you
no option.
only need one.
I love
That's
it.
awesome.
Wow.
I love it.
That is cool.
So for those families that don't have that and they're in that 3 to 5 year period waiting, what are the statistics of something going bad once they're diagnosed as far as, hey, something bad might happen?
Before they actually
And a
get the
question I have
transplant.
is, what are the options? Because just waiting for a regular someone to come in like Josh or myself or Maddie, just saying, hey, or any of us just say, hey, I'm donating a kidney.
So dialysis is a lifesaver, and there are
Yes.
many different ways you can dialyze. You can dialyze at home. You can do dialysis in a center. You can do it overnight. But you have to remember, dialysis does in 15 hours a week what your body does 24 hours a day. And it's very hard on the heart. It's very hard on your body. We're lucky to have it. It's a lifesaver, but living donation is really the best outcome. So we always encourage this early diagnosis, early treatment, find your donor. Because the fact of the matter is cars are being built better, people are living longer, and if you're sitting on that list waiting for a cadaver kidney, you're waiting for that 3 to 5 years.
Wow. And it's a cadaver. That's the other option, is waiting for someone. Like if I have a donor on my license,
Yes.
that'd be an example of something happens.
Correct. But you want to make sure that your friend or your family knows, because even if you check that on your license, all that's doing is telling your next of kin what you have wanted. It's still up to them. So my husband may have checked that box, but I can still say, no, I want him to be buried with everything. So make sure your family knows what your wishes are.
And that's what we talked about on previous shows with an attorney, Susie King, I think it was the healthcare directive, and having that stuff in there, going a step further than just saying, like you said, Sarah, as being a donor. Well, if you have questions or needed more information or anything, go to kidney.org is a great resource, right, Sarah?
Correct.
Go to kidney.org, and we'll be back with more. I'm Jason Stockwell with Remax Results.
Josh O'Shea, Remax Advantage Plus.